All right, how you guys all doing? Live video, and I'm not doing this in my office, but I will soon. This is going to be called First Responders California Fires, and I want to I've been looking at this and kind of studying what's been going on, and so basically, there's a couple very odd anomalies with this, and some of them is that they're claiming that these fires are very hot and melting metals and things like that. Well, I'm not going to get into all that. We're just going to get into what's really going on with these fires. And so, if you want to look all that up, how these fires are starting and how they're anomalies and how they're melting cars and the wind. I even looked up the wind currents. It's kind of funny how a lot of these fires had high winds. Winds of like 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, and then the house burnt down, and then the garbage cans are still standing there, like the wind didn't blow them over. So there's some anomalies here, and there's a lot of guys and gals out there that are explaining how this is all happening, and so I am not going to get into that. We're going to get into the safety and what's really going on here. So you got two fires here. You got the campfire and okay, the campfire, and we have the WAYSEAR fire, and they're very large fires. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here. So if you look at these fires, what's kind of funny is it's not really funny, but what I notice is that they have fires here all the time, and later on we're going to talk about these. These are fires in different years, and you're going to see how these fires somehow end up in a location. It's almost like a pattern, and then here these are the wind currents that cause these fires. And these are and it's kind of funny how we have one fire right here and we have one fire right here. And these are the typical winds that help disperse these fires, and they go out into the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. And I want to talk about that too. Okay. There's some crazy stuff going on here. This is a picture of, we're going to call it dirty, poisonous air. And, if you look at this, those wind currents are pushing out into the Pacific. And if you notice, we do have these Pacific islands here, and I'm going to talk a little about these islands in a couple of minutes. But all this is going on in the Pacific. And why is it going on in the Pacific? It's dirty air. We're going to talk about what's in that air also. So they're saying now that the campfire has a lot of fatalities. It's probably approaching 100, and there's a lot of people missing. A lot of people missing are going to show up. They probably, went up to the mountains just to get out of there. Don't want to breathe that air. And there's 12,000 structures just from the campfire, and we've got 1,000 structures from the Woolsey fire. And so these structures are being burnt down, and we're going to talk about why they may not be put back or rebuilt. So if you're looking here, we got the two fires, we got the wind going. These winds have been here for a long time, and they're going and they're pushing it out. Now this is we're going to call this a dirty air map. You can look this up. There's a lot of sites, and this is kind of scary. We're like sitting here worried about our little fires here. There's little fires. You can't even see them on this map, but there's fires in Russia, huge fires in Russia. And this is really not fire map. This is a pollution map with particulate. We're going to talk about particulate. We're going to go to microns. 1 micron gets down inside your lungs. That's the stuff that causes cancer. 5 usually stops your heavy mold spores, your cladosporiums, things like that. Your slime molds, they're 5. Fecal pellets are smaller than that. Fecal pellets are from dust mites when they break up into fragments, so they're actually lower than this. This is the damaging. This is what damages you, this small. And then these are kind of large. They kind of settle out. And so these maps here is actually a map from just a couple days ago. Last place I'd want to be living right now is in Africa. I don't know if you guys know it, but 10% of Africa is on fire. Okay, this is not a fire map, but this whole section is on fire. And the farmers started the fires there, and so did the government. And so all these fires are simultaneously starting, which is kind of makes you wonder why now. And sure, it's dry, but there's fires in Russia. Putin's burning his forests, and a lot of those trees were radioactive from accidents, and that's all going up to the polar areas. We're all worried about global warming and things like that. A lot of these fires do a lot. So this is the dirty air map as of a couple days ago, and USA is pretty dirty. So we're going to zoom in on that. Now, here's the people in California. They are basically, let me adjust my camera here. They are basically, this is a very large area, okay? And this is parts per billion. And this is chemicals, this is smoke, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 5 microns, and it's a large area. So all that smoke people are driving through is getting in their lungs. Very bad. These trees are contaminated. And also these fires are kind of like in crazy places. You're going to see what kind of stuff is burning here in a minute. So basically, if you are in California right now and you're like driving around and this is a really large area, I wouldn't be driving around here right now. I'm going to call these first responders, and we know what happened to the first responders up in New York, right? A lot of those people aren't around anymore because they breathed that air, and that air was bad. And this air is bad too, okay? And it's actually, this air is really bad. This is another view, and this actually shows the some of the wind currents and the different types of air. So the red is pretty much small microns. That's a lot. That's where a lot of air, dirty air exists, where it actually can get in your lungs. So if you're like walking around there and you're not wearing a respirator, and I'm going to say that a dust mask isn't even going to work at this point. I think you need a HEPA filter, high efficient particle air filter. You shouldn't even be here. I think I don't think anybody should be even here for a long time. And the other problem is all this dust now in other homes in other cities. This dust is in their air conditioning systems. It's on their roofs. It's on their driveways. It's in their cars. So, I mean, even if you weren't in the fire area, it sounds like you should be calling your insurance company because you want to have your entire car cleaned. I mean, this stuff is in your car. It's in your car filter. It's in your car engine. It's in your house, and I would say, filter changes are every 3 months. And these are homes that haven't been affected, just homes in the area. In the California area, they're going to, you're going to want to change your filter probably every 30 days. You're going to have to clean your house a couple of times for dust. I mean, this is poisonous dust. Now, I'm going to jump away from this dust just for a little bit, and I'm going to show you something pretty crazy. This, if you were around in 1992, they had this thing called a Regional Degenal Earth Summit, and they have an Earth Summit every 20 years. So this is a 1992 Earth Summit map. And basically, for some reason, I think they attacked America at this Earth Summit because they think that we waste, we create a lot more carbon dioxide than somebody possibly living in, in India or Africa. And so it was almost like, I believe, I'm going to call it an assault and an attack on the United States from this green world. Well, this is what they call a biodiversity wildlands map. And you can look this up, okay? It's the word is agenda, and I don't want to say the number yet because a lot of times I say certain words and I get demonetized or I get a strike from YouTube. The number is 21. So get that first I said and then use the 21. Look that up, and you will find out what's going on with that. Then you look up the Wildlands Project map, and just so you know, this is not a fire map. These red zones are no population zones. Nobody lives in these zones. The only zones people live in, and they're really small, are these little teeny spots right here, these little green zones, okay? The yellow zones are buffer zones. So this is what they're turning America into. And what's it's not funny, but if you notice all the fires up in these areas, or where the farmers are leaving, or where they're shutting down, they say, oh, we're not fixing bridges and dams. Well, there's a reason for that. They're never going to fix them. And if they don't fix their bridges and dams, then the people got to move. And they want to move people to, I'm going to call stack and packs. They're trying to get people into these cluster zones, okay? And they're changing this whole map. This has been going around since 1992. And you're going to see how this is all fitting together here. So this is a map. You can look this up. It's all over the internet, okay? And so let's move on. Here's the California one. Now, I zoomed in on it and blew it up for you. And here's pretty much where our fires are at. What's kind of funny, actually, nothing's funny here. The fires are in this area here, which in the future is going to be a no population zone, okay? The other fire, see the arrow is right over here. No population zones. Now, if you're good, and here's your two fires, I got this off the internet, okay, they are actually, this map is from 1992, and it was actually done before that, and they're working on this every day. This is their plan. Their plan is to move people, and the people are going to live in these little green, these bluish areas. Nobody's going to be able to walk in this area. So what's funny, again, it's not funny, is that the fires happen to be in these areas. Now, let's talk about what's going to happen to these homes. You see, the ICC is the International Code Council, and they have changed and made the codes very, very stringent. The codes are going to require like sprinkler systems. I mean, it's almost going to be impossible to build a house. It's not going to be feasible to build a house. It's just going to cost too much money. So these homes that are burning down are going to get a certain insurance policy. They're not going to cover the foundations. And I don't know if you've been watching some of these internet channels, but they're saying these fires are so hot they're melting and boiling the ground, which I've never heard of. And you see these cars that have these molded like holes going through them, you know, and they're just saying that these fires are just something really odd going on with these fires. Okay, and you could try to look all that up. So we got this agenda thing going on, 21, and you've got the fires in these zones here. Now, so that's one anomaly. Okay, and you can look this up. Now this is another one. This is the actual map of this is the United States, if you could see it. And here you can see how dirty the air is. There's some fires up here, and all these fires are causing major pollution, and the wind's blowing it out into the Pacific Ocean. So anybody in this area here should have a mask on, number one. But let's jump to this map. This is kind of the map where this is the fire map. This is what's been burned. And they've been burning this. A lot of this is from this year, and there's some from last year. But guess what? Let's jump down and look at the new high-speed rail system. Whoa, what the heck? Let me think. If we pick this high-speed rail system, we move it right there. And then this is a little bit skewed here. This is Las Vegas. But the map, if you know the map is at the right size, right? So here's your Las Vegas map, and there's a fire. There's a fight. Oh, they burned it all to Vegas. They burned it all up for the high-speed rail. Okay, they burned this area where nobody's going to live anymore, according to that map I showed you, which was the Regional de Janeiro 1990. Check it out. There's a book on it. You can read up on it. This is real stuff. It's really happening. And so why? Is this a coincidence? Yeah, I'm sure it's a coincidence, right? A coincidence. So let's move on. All right, so we're going to get back to the smoke map. And let's talk about that a little bit more. So first of all, you shouldn't be in this. You shouldn't be walking around. You should be wearing a mask. If you have a home in any of these areas, even the areas that weren't affected, you probably should lock up your home and disappear for a couple months until all the settles down, because there's going to be a lot of turbulence, and all this dust is going to be blowing around. Now let's get into what's in the dust. This is going to get real interesting now. So as I'm looking at this, I'm trying to think, well, what's in this dust? So, like, could it be radioactive? Well, I don't know. So I get onto I look at the sites on the 11th, and they have these. You can look this up. There are sites that will show you all the nuclear reactors, all the radiation sites, and we have meters all over the country that continuously monitor. And so I found Vegas, and I thought that was pretty. It was pretty high down here in Vegas. So then what I did is I looked up the meters, and here's Reno. They actually have a radiation detector in Reno. And what kind of scares me is when you got a gap like here. There's a gap from here to here. Like, what happened here? Maybe they, let's go back to 2011, where we had that three reactors melt down in Japan. Well, what happened was all our radiation detectors were turned off between like the 15th to the 25th. Wow. I wonder why they were off. Okay, and they told us don't worry about it. And that was the fallout. And what was even scarier was, if you look on the maps, you'll find out that our administration had left Washington along with the CEOs of the GE reactors, which were the reactors in Japan that melted, and they all went down to the southern hemisphere, like on a little retreat, and so this scares me, because here's a little gap. What's going on here? This is in Reno. So I'm like wondering, all right, what's going on? I'm going to try to figure out what's in this air. What's going to be dangerous here? Oh, there's another map, San Francisco. Now look at this. So over here, that's still, that's still kind of high. Okay. I mean, there's radiation in the air there, but then it spikes during the fires. Why is it spiking during the fires? Was there something going on? This is pretty high spike here. That's double. I mean, that's pretty high over here. That's actually unsafe, I'm thinking. And so that's where the fires started burning. And before you know it, and I think we're like the 20th now, right? Because today's the 20th. And so I'd have to go back and look at it. So then I'm like, well, let's see. So I look up all the atomic radiation. So I look at all the things that happen in near Los Angeles. And this is pretty crazy. First of all, back in I'm going to say in during the Cold War, probably 55 until Kennedy was assassinated. Kennedy actually shut this down. They blew up. I'm going to say in 19. Let me get back to it. I'm sorry about that. In 1959 and 1962, there's probably 200 atomic explosions, man. They blew them up in the sky, and all that went down towards us. We all got irradiated back then. My father actually died from leukemia, and he was a scientist at GE, and GE was what? Were they there? One of the 4 big companies at Manhattan Project, right? Well, this stuff probably contaminated this whole area. These are radioactive dump sites, okay? And then these are atomic explosions in the ocean, okay? And so I'm like thinking, all right, so we've had radioactive radiation in this site, okay? And, radiation, these are half-lives. The radiation half-lives of some of these, like cesium-137 or beryllium, plutonium, some of these are like 250,000 years. And the other issue is these nuclear reactors have spent rods. These spent rods are still stuck there because nobody wants them. And so these spent rods are on these sites. And some sites have 2,000 to 4,000 rods. And by the way, if you stand in front of these radioactive spent rods, you can be dead within a couple of hours. That's how radioactive they are. So we've got a lot of activity, okay? So let's move on. And so then I'm looking here, and here's all the smoke. This is from this fire, and you can see all these people here are breathing this, okay? This is the campfire smoke, and up here was, down below was the other fire. So this whole area is full of smoke, and it's radioactive, parts of it. So then I go up and I start looking up old reactor sites. Now the Woolsey fire, I looked up and it said the Woolsey fire was started in a brush. They called it a brush fire. And guess where it started at? Right here, man, in this area. This was the first nuclear reactor in America. And guess what? It melted in 1959. Completely contaminated this whole area. And they've had 4 other accidents since then. So this whole area is radioactive, okay, right where this fire is. Okay, remember they said the fire is so hot, it's melting the ground, it's burning the stone, it's burning the soil, okay, it's melting steel, all right, and then I show you the winds, we're all going this way, So here you got this site that's probably totally contaminated, and there's another view of it, and you'll see this is kind of like a mountain area. They have like, I'm going to say close to 3,000 acres. Okay, it's called the Santa Susana Field Laboratory, and that's what they did here. It's also called Rocketdyne. You can look this stuff up. And this place here basically was the first nuclear reactors that they tested and it melted. Okay, and back then they didn't have the EPA back then. Okay, so all those people are dead from radiation poisoning. And then they also tested all the rockets for all the launches and all that poisonous fuel that they used that didn't work and explosions. So this place is a hazmat site. I mean, and they're thinking about trying to clean it up, and they probably are cleaning it up, but I'm sure it won't be cleaned up. This is an aerial view of the Santa Susana Field Laboratory, and it'll just, for example, here this melted down in 1959. Okay, this facility had 3 radiation leaks, okay? Okay, this could have been hard, it could have been water. Okay, here they had a reactor accident. There's lots of nuclear reactors here. They have a nuclear reactor accident here. Another nuclear reactor accident, that was in 64 or 69. Remember I told you there's thorium. So some of these reactors, are using plutonium and uranium that have half-lives of thousands of years. So it's not like, you have a spill. It's not like it's going to go away. It's going to be like that for thousands of years. And how do you get rid of it? Okay, let's think about how you get rid of it. How do we make it go away? Sometimes fires make it go away in wind, right? So here we go. So this is off-site contamination of this area. This is where the fire started. And you'll see all around it, they have I mean, you got plutonium. This is soil contaminated by plutonium, cesium soil contaminated, arsenic, lead, beryllium, cesium over here. This is the site. This is not even on their property. It's around it, and that's where the fire was at. There's all this green area that burned down, and all that smoke and particulate went over the populations. Okay, and that's probably why we got some readings. So moving on here. So now I'm like thinking, all right. Well, is it just radiation? Probably not. So I looked up all the brownfields, okay? Brownfields are your dumps, your contaminated areas, your chemical areas. And so if you notice where the fires are at, let me back it up here. The one fire is right here. See the fire up here? The pictures, let me move this down a little bit. Sorry about that. And so this fire is right here. Look at all the brownfields. I mean, is this planned? And this is down here. I'm sorry. Let's move it back here. And this is the other fire. Here's your California. Here's California. And look at this. The fire started here and the fire started here. And there's a train going through here. And we talked about Agenda 21. So let's go to my last slide. I'm going to back it up a minute. Okay. And so these are your maps. They're from a satellite. And this is think about it. If you got a fire, you got carbon monoxide. This whole area is full of low-level carbon monoxide. That's not good for you. And if you got carbon monoxide, you got carbon dioxide, and you got sulfite, right? And you have soot. These are all particulates. So this is your carbon monoxide map, and this is your particulate map. And this is pretty much your particles that can get down into your lungs. And look how large this area is, okay? Now, so I'm going to say that A, you shouldn't be here. B, you probably have an insurance claim on your house and your car and everything you own because this particulate has gotten everywhere. And if you don't clean it, you're going to be breathing it. I would probably, if it was I probably would leave for 6 months. And, you know, because all these people, the entire city and all the population in my book are the first responders. So this is pretty serious. These, you know, and what's going to happen is lives people, they're not going to get the insurance money they want because remember I said the ICC codes have changed. There's no way. They're not going to give them new foundations. The foundations in some cases have melted. That's how hot these fires are. And so they're not going to get enough money to build a house. Number two, the ICC codes aren't going to permit it. Number three, the biggest one is that now they have high fire zone maps. Believe that? Yeah, they got them. And so now insurance companies will not insure you in those zones. So you're not going to be able to build a $500,000 house because insurance ain't going to cover it. And the other problem is that the fire departments aren't going to be there either because they won't be able to be sustained because no one's going to be able to pay for it. So they're going to end up being, remember, let's go back to this map. Let's go right back up here. We're going to go back to here into this map. They're going to end up being the agenda, Regional de Janeiro 1992 21. That's the number. That's what you want to look up, and you'll notice that all these areas. And I've been actually plotting the fires for the last 15 years, and it seems like these fires always happen to be in the red zones. And these are the areas that they just happen not to fix the roads, and they don't fix the bridges, and they shut the dams down. Okay, you know, and people have to move. And what's even, now this is kind of mind-boggling, but in this map, which was done in 1992, guess what it has? It has a wall. A wall, 1992. So, you know, that wall is not new news. Now, is that wall really to keep people from coming in? Or is it really to keep people from going out? That's what you got to think about. This picture is a lot bigger than you think it is. It's not just a little fire. I mean, it is, because I know you're all going to say, oh, it's a coincidence. You're crazy. They're not that diabolical. You're nuts. You're, what's that word? I don't even want to say that word. If I say that word, then, you know, I'll get demonetized on this. You know what I'm talking about, right? And I'm not going to say that word. So if you want to think that this is just by coincidence, go for it. Now, if you get on the internet, you can find all this stuff. You can find, you know, how there's pictures of these fires. And there's like, you know, for example, there's a Walmart that's completely gone. I mean, completely gone. and everything around it's still there, you know. So it was, you know, it's the fires must have personalities, you know, in California. So this is my 2 cents on this. I think it's a big picture. It's there. I think what's happening is in America we have a real problem with energy, and we have 99 nuclear reactors, and a lot of these nuclear. And I've been studying every one of them, and pretty much half of them have had leaks. I mean, even in New York, there's leaks. A reactor that had leaked into the river. You're talking what, 40 miles away from the city? I mean, so you know, there's problems with these reactors, and the other problem is they weren't designed. They were all supposed to be done like 8 years ago, and now they've extended their lives. Like up in Cleveland, we have one that melted or almost melted. There's a big hole in it, and they kind of super glued it. And Chicago had 6 reactors. 5 of them leaked water into the sewer systems. I mean, I can go right down the line here. I mean, you know, the biggest one, of course, we know that was the Japanese one, and that was pretty much destroying the entire Pacific Ocean. I mean, you don't even want to eat fish from the Pacific Ocean at this point. Speaking of food, let's just touch that for 1 second. There's if you notice these, this is blowing this onto these little islands here. Guess what? These islands also are areas where they dumped radioactive, and back in the 60s, we're talking 30 to 40, 55-gallon drums of radiation of cesium and beryllium and plutonium is right off the coast of here, 50, 60 miles, right off the coast of the land. And so, you know, the fishermen, you know, that remember I said the radiation and the radioactive isotopes. I don't have that here. I don't have that slide here, but right here, these islands here, they were dumping 55 gallons of drums back in the 50s and 60s. They're still down there, man. They're still down there. And so the fish are probably radioactive, you know, not to mention all the fish in the Pacific Ocean from Fukushima now is dumping 1 million gallons of radioactive water into the ocean. Think about what that's doing to the oceans and to our food. Now, the scary part is, and this is not for the California people, this is going to be for the people up here in Cleveland, and on the people that, you know, that get food from California. There's literally 7,000 farmers down in California, and all this contamination is on the fields, man. It's on the fields. So now you've got root vegetables. You're going to be picking this up. You're going to have grapes, you know, that are probably going to be radioactive. So now the wine is going to mess up the wine. Nobody. When you go to your winery, do you bring your radiation gauge? No. Do you bring your radiation gauge to Finest or to Whole Foods when you go buy your food? No. Yeah, pretty soon you might have to. So we're going to get a lot. The aftermath of this is going to be severe. I'm thinking, you know, you should have your own garden. You should do your own canning. You should do your own pressure cooking, your own dehydrating, your own freezing. You've got to be really, really careful where you're getting your food from. And remember, I told you there's 99 reactors in America. They're all like zits, ready to pop. And I can't believe that they've extended their lifespans for another 20 years. We are going to have a lot of nuclear accidents. And then this fracking's a whole other ball game. So thanks for coming on. This is my telephone first live video. And eventually this winter, I'll start doing more live videos. I'm getting a studio together, and hopefully the quality will be much better. So thank you all for being on. I don't know how to turn this thing on.